What's up, basketball coaches, players, and fans? Welcome back to the Pass First podcast, where we share our knowledge of the game. My name is Augie Johnson, and I'm here with my partner, Alex Engel, and we hope you're able to take something away from today's episode that will help you in your basketball journey. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking all about the building blocks to having a really competitive team. What kind of things do you need to put in? What kind of things do you need to not waste your time on, as we both are coming up to our season and we're getting ready to prepare for our season. So that's what today's episode is about. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, guys, thanks again for checking out today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, you can follow us there as well, or iTunes, or wherever you're listening to this, follow us there. Like I said, we're going to be talking about all the different building blocks you have to put in as a coach in order to have a competitive team, in order to feel like you've done what you can to put your team in the best position to succeed. And like I mentioned, we are coming up on starting our season. Obviously, this is 2021, April. So COVID, the whole thing, has halted our season. And now we have finally got the green lights to have a season. And so I guess, Alex, you told me earlier that you guys are starting your first practices coming up. We, too, are starting our first practices coming up. We've both done maybe a few preseason things with COVID protocols and all that stuff. So, couldn't really do everything we wanted to do, but we do have some stuff in. So let's start this off. And I'm going to ask you a question about defense. Okay. So when we're talking about defense, obviously, we identified a few different things that we'll be talking about. I'm just going to go over them real quick. You got to put in your half court defense, your half court offense, your press break, your press, your rebounding, transition offense, all those kind of things, a few other things. We're going to talk about those, and we're going to start with defense. So what's kind of some of the first steps in putting in your defense?
So for me, the first steps are to basically teach them the concepts of man-to-man defense. Now, I typically play half-court man. I don't use a ton of zone, although this year I'll probably be putting in a little bit of it. That way we can switch things up every once in a while. But basically the principles of my half-court man defense are nobody gets to the middle, force everything sideline baseline, just the basics of that. So first starting with that, and that's kind of at an individual level, teach them how to 45-degree angles so they're not dark line drive, but you can force in a certain direction, teach them hand placement, right? There's all those little things. But as a team concept, I think the main thing that I work on defensively, and I harp on this all season, and we work on it almost every practice, is defensive rotations. So that's like a foundation for me is, you can teach all the individual skills and all that, but at the end of the day, kids are going to get beat. It is what it is. Nobody plays a perfect game. So if you don't have the knowledge and understanding and the instinct to rotate when a player does get beat, I think you're going to have a hard time guarding. So I would say for me, defensive rotations started off with, 2 or 3 man rotations, and then slowly build up to 4 man rotations. And then eventually we got to 5 man. We'll throw the post player in there and teach how to rotate out of that. That was probably my first thing.
Nice. And as far as you building that defense and stuff, what kind of drills are we doing? You said 3-on-3, then 4-on-4. Are these like shell type drills, like shell defense?
Yeah. And so, as you said, with COVID stuff, it's been a little difficult. You can't go live, you can't have contact, right? But you can still do a shell. You just have to do it with no contact, basically. But a lot of times what I'll do in a shell is I'll have them swing the ball, and then the players will jump to the ball. They'll rotate, they'll move. So that we have a help side always, right? We want to teach that you have help side, you have deny, you got man on ball. And then at some point I'll either blow the whistle or I'll say go, and a player drives to the baseline, wherever the ball's at. And then the players have to react and know how to rotate out of that. So I don't always do a baseline drive, because baseline drive to me is the easiest one to rotate out of. Usually it's post steps up and everyone just rotates. Sometimes I'll do it from the elbow, where it's a little more confusing, and then they have to think while they're rotating. But yeah, that's typically the main drill that I would use as a shell drill. And then obviously you can vary how you do that shell drill.
Nice. And like you said, there's all these other small details, right? Like your foot placement, forcing baseline, your hands, all that kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about some of those. And then I'll go ahead and spill the beans on kind of my take on all this too. So do you like to deny passes?
I do. I do like to get a hand in the passing lane. I'm not overly aggressive because I don't want to get backdoored, but I like the kind of standard one step out, one step up.
Cool. And he's talking about, basically we call that on the line, up the line, which is if you were to draw a line between two players, you said you'd want them one step off. Is that once? Are you talking about something different? Are you talking about stepping back?
I'm talking about, sorry, when I say one step off, I mean like towards the ball, one step
Yeah.
towards the ball, and then one step up. So yeah, up, what did you say? On the line, up the line?
Yeah.
It's
so
the same thing. I've heard it called that before too.
Okay, cool. And then if a team's playing like 4 out and there's 2 slots, do you like to deny the slot, even though it's one pass away? If the ball's in the slot and there's another slot, do you like to deny that or play help on that?
I like to deny that.
Nice. Okay, cool. So I will go ahead and spill the beans on kind of my half court defense stuff. You got, because every coach does it different. You know, there's no right way, and that's one thing that Alex and I found out when we first started coaching together, is that we rotated a little differently on this stuff, which I'm not really a nitpicky on that as much anymore, because I think, like you said, you got to teach them to rotate. Once you teach them to rotate, then you don't really have to have clear-cut rules on who goes where, as long as they, in some situations you do maybe, but as long as they understand how to rotate, they're going to do it. But so for me, yeah, I'm always going to start off in a shell, right? We're going to start building your man defense from a shell. And I think I like what you said, where you have them drive from different positions, because I think a lot of times everyone at the shell drill always drives from the baseline. And then I also like the idea of doing a shell drill against 5 out, doing a shell drill against 4 out, 1 in, doing a shell drill 3 out, 2 in, just because those are the different kind of spacing you're going to see out there. So if time allows, I go through all those, but it looks like time will probably not allow for us on that. But for me, slot to slot, we try to clog that up. We don't go and deny that one. And then we do deny wings. So I would talk about, denying the wings. We force baseline as well, but we this year is a little bit more. I just want our guys to, I'm trying to pound into their head, hey, just make them shoot contested mid-rangers off the dribble. So what's your level of defense? Can you pressure? Then pressure them and stay in front and make them shoot a contested mid-ranger off the dribble, or not even shoot at all. Or are you not quick? Well, then I'm going to need you to give them some space. And if they drive, then you've got to jump back and make sure they're not getting to the hoop, and make them shoot a contested mid-ranger off the dribble. So not as much force and baseline as hardcore with it this year, but definitely staying in front, and we don't want middle drives, no paint touches. All right, so let's go ahead and move on, so this episode doesn't last like 5 hours. So going and putting in your half-court offense, I guess you say you don't play much zone. Do you want to talk about zone for a minute before we move on?
Sure, we can talk about like some zone defensive stuff.
Sure.
For me, I think, and I guess, trying to tie this episode into what we do, as far as not only what we do, but why do we do it, and why do we consider it a foundational building block. And if you're listening in, the reason we're talking about this is because to us, you have to have at least some version of this if you want to be competitive. It doesn't mean you have to have exactly what we do, but you want to touch on all these different things in order to be able to compete. So zone, you need to at least, I think, have a 1 zone defense, and most typical it's a 2-3. Like last year, we almost never ran zone, but I still had us run the zone defense a few times just to understand the basic concepts. This year I'll switch that up and probably do a little bit more, but again, I would say at least a 2-3, and then if you need to get more advanced, you can throw in a 3-2 or a 1-3-1, but just something to switch it up here and there.
Yep, and thanks for mentioning that. That's the same with me too, right? You want to have a zone defense. If you face a team that is lightning quick and can't shoot, then you might want to play zone. So definitely that's another building block. Okay, let's talk about the next building block, and because we don't need to harp on exactly all the details of all the different zone defenses and stuff. I run 2-3 as well, and then 1-3-1 as well. So press break. So I guess, are you putting in a press break in these first few weeks? And if so, I guess just what you don't need to, I guess you could explain a little bit about your press break, but you don't need to dive into every little detail.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the press break is so sometimes underutilized. I think it's something every team needs to have, and a well-organized one. And honestly, you should probably practice a lot, because there's nothing worse than you don't have a press break in and you play like 3 or 4 games and you're doing well. And then all of a sudden this team comes out and presses you and you can't get the ball past half court. And honestly, for me as a coach and as a player, like it's embarrassing if you can't even move the ball up the court, because it looks like you've never taught them anything. So no matter how good your point guard is, you should have a press break. And so I like to do a 1-4 set on the press break. Get into that diamond formation. If anyone, listening in knows what I'm talking about, where you kind of have one at the top, 2 on the sides, one kind of near half court. And it depends on the position of what players you want there. And then normally you're 5 mans deep to keep the defense honest. But get into that type of a press break. That way you can move the ball, advance it up the court, and give different options to attack and get it across safely. So yeah, press break for me is huge. And if you ask my players, they probably get tired of how often we normally practice that.
Yeah, I agree. It's super important. And I also run a 1-4 press break. I think it's definitely, I know the one you run, and it's a different one, but I'll just tell our listeners right now, the reason I like it is for a few reasons. I like the 1-4 setup because a lot of teams are going to zone press. If we're talking about zone press right now. So if you're going to get zone press, no one's going to have 4 players up there denying every player. So if you're ever getting pressed in a game and you can't enter the ball, well, that could have all been avoided if you just had a 1-4 setup, because you got 4 players to throw it to. They're not going to have 4 players there. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing I like about it is the way that we run it, and I'm not going to go through every detail, but is we are able to get cutters going up the court for catches, right? So we have a 1-4 set. We got 2 with the both elbows covered and then both wings covered basically on that side of the court. And when it comes in, we have cutters cutting up the court. So if we're able to get it to the middle of the court, which is what everyone's trying to do in a press break, right? Get it to the middle or maybe up the sideline. Then you are moving up the court. I know I've ran a lot of press breaks where I'm coming from half court flashing into the middle, which is pretty, I don't know, maybe that's more old school now. I don't know, but I've ran a lot of that are like that, which is fine. But when you catch it, it's number one, you want to catch and look opposite, but that's a hard pivot to make if there's someone on your back, right? You're jumping to get a catch. So, and then if you have to put the ball on the deck and go, you have to turn, pivot, you're guarded, and you're not just like blowing by somebody. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that's just my 2 cents on the press break. And yeah, we would definitely be putting that in. And we would run it 5-on-0 a lot, normally as warm up, like come in the gym, guys haven't done anything yet. They're kind of cold. Well, instead of running a 3-man weave, we might just do like a press break, 5-on-0. And then of course do it 5-on-5. And that's kind of how we'd work on it. Do you ever do anything else besides that to work on your press break? Is there any other little things you've seen besides 5-on-0 and 5-on-5?
I've seen like some small side. Well, I guess not small size games, but just like different games. Like, you ever played like a full court cutthroat game? You ever done like full court cutthroat where, if you score, you keep it, whatever. And I've seen some where 4-on-4 full court cutthroat, you score, but then if the team you score on, they don't get off, they like stay on the court, and then they can play defense on you as you try and go back the other way, like full court. And and they can run a man press or a zone. It's kind of up to them. But it's just that chaos of, getting the ball and having to advance up the court, and you have 4 people up on that half court. So you have to work, it's another way to just work on being comfortable with the ball. Because a lot of times with the press, the concepts aren't difficult. It's really about getting your players comfortable being in pressure, right? Comfortable being uncomfortable. If you have players that panic easily, no matter what set you put in, you're going to turn the ball over a lot. So if you can get your kids comfortable, you're going to have a higher chance of success.
Yeah. So maybe, even drills like we call it triangle trap drill, like where you're getting trapped, right? And you have to make a pass, and then they're getting trapped and they have to make a pass. I mean, I guess that's a small breakdown drill that allows you to work on passing out of a trap. So the other one that came to mind for me would be like just adding a 6th player to the pressing team that could help work on your press break.
Right.
But yeah, I like that idea. The continuous. I think I might have done that as a player before, but I haven't done that in years. Haven't put my players through that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're talking about press break. Okay, we definitely need to put in a press break before our season starts. Are you going to put one in for man and zone, or just zone?
Typically, I just put a zone one in. Man presses, I like point guard catch because that's in my 1-4 set. My point guard's catching. So typically, I like point guard catch, clear out, and then everyone else get out the way, and it's just one on one. Point guard needs to bring the ball. I do tell my players, hey, if she clears you out, don't just put your head down and run away. Like, you should keep an eye back on her, because a lot of times those man presses, they'll do that weird thing where everyone runs on the court, and then the second someone will just take off and start trapping, and it's like 1-on-2, and everyone else is just standing down there, and they're like, hey, and it's like, okay, well, great, now you got to make a 60-foot pass to get the ball over. So I do teach my kids to keep their eyes back, but generally in man presses, it's clear out with the point guard bring the ball up.
Cool. We run a 1-4 set as well for that, where we just set a double screen for a point guard coming off and then a roll back. But I like the same principle too, as far as clear out. Yeah, and when we man press, I hate teams that clear us out, because like you said, if you really want to trap after a clear out, like, you're putting yourself in a tough spot because you're coming from pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So there's press break. What about press? Is that going to be something you're going to put in?
Yeah, definitely. I think you have to have a press. Even if you're not a pressing team, I think you need to have a press, because you may be in a situation where you're down by 4 with a minute left, or something like that, or 45 seconds left, and you've got to get them to turn the ball over. Or maybe 4 is not enough points. Maybe it's like 6 or 8, and you've got to get them to turn the ball over. You got to have a press, because otherwise, if you just say, hey, just go pressure them, like, it's not going to work, So you've got to have some type of press in. I prefer the 2-2-1, because it's a little safer. If you really want to risk your press, the 1-2-2, and if you have the athletes for it, 1-2-2 is riskier, but I think way higher reward as well. But there's lots of different ones, half court, or, I guess you call it like a half court press. I guess it's more of a trap in that situation, but where teams really extend out to like the half court line, anything like that to get the other team to turn the ball over quickly, I think you need to have.
Yeah, definitely. I agree too. I like the 2-2-1. I think it's the safest press. It's the best at slowing down the other team, I think, for shot clock stuff. I think it's easy to set up even like off of a made basket, right? Because you can still run back. Like, if I made a layup, I'm still going to run back on defense, at least to the elbow area, right? Before I set up the press. So, I mean, you're not like overextending yourself. And then everybody else, right? The second line there is running, I mean, almost back to half court, so you're able to protect the basket still. One thing that I ran a long time ago that I really liked, it was when I was coaching at the freshman level. So I'm not sure how that translates to all levels, but it was a 1-2-2 half court press, or almost like a 3/4. And I liked it because I felt like it was safe. Like, we could score, and then we could hustle back and get into that. And get traps in the exact same spots that you would get traps with the 2-2-1. And so that was cool. I haven't messed with that in a long time, but that's because I had a really lanky dude on my team that was just out there, in the top spot, not letting that ball reverse and getting some good traps. So, all right, let's keep this thing going. Yeah, so for us, we put in a lot of presses. We'll put in actually just a couple, but we do have a man press too. And the ultimate goal, man, really in my program, maybe not this year because of COVID and stuff, but and maybe not every year because of personnel, but I would love to be a team that can press off a made basket, that can press even off a missed basket. Like, if we have a good defender, like, why not pick up full, turn them a couple times, maybe get a trap. And maybe not often get a trap, and just pick them up and get them out of their stuff. But, every now and then, can we get good at trapping and hit them with a trap? So, All right. What's it like? So, okay, we've talked a lot about like almost like plays and like stuff like that. And even though it was defense, it's kind of their structure there. What about like a skill? Like, are you going to teach any skills? Like, what about rebounding?
Yeah, definitely box out skills. I think that's a fundamental thing you've got to teach your kids is how to rebound, the importance of rebounding, and also just, again, I know it's a structure, but how you want your team to rebound. Like, do you like four to the boards? Do you like 3 to the boards on offense? Every team's different. Some teams, there are some teams that say don't go to the boards, just get back. So I think for me, I'm definitely a 4 to the boards type of player, or coach, I should say. Safety going back, and then as far as the skills go, just teaching them the footwork and techniques and fundamentals of, hey, you got to meet your man. Don't you can't let them push you into the paint. Meet your man. If everybody boxes out, that's the old saying of like the ball will actually bounce on the floor and then you can go get it. We know that doesn't really happen, but in a perfect world, in an ideal world, it would. So I would say those are some of the things that you have to have in as well.
Yeah. And I know that never happens, but I think I might have seen it happen maybe once or twice in my
Yeah,
life,
I have seen it. It's not often, but it does happen.
Yeah. And you're just like, wow, that was incredible. And,
Yeah.
and me seeing that makes me think like, okay, well, I think there's one more piece that was not taught or that player didn't pick up as far as like releasing and going
Right.
and getting the ball. I think the pursuit of the ball is important.
Yeah, and pursuing the ball, I don't mean to add in here, but pursuing the ball is a big thing because a lot of players will hit their man and then they'll just stand there, and it's like the really good rebounders can go get it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the last piece that I think you need to teach. And yeah, I think like a thought came to my mind as you were talking there, as far as like in discussing, are we teaching skills? I think at this point, once you're actually in season and it's not preseason skill workouts or anything like that, like I think you need to teach the structure, but I think there needs to be a skill part of that structure, right? Like you said with the defense, where your hand placement is, where your feet is, like that's not really part of the structure. It's more a part of like your ability to guard somebody, your skill in guarding.
Mm-hmm.
So with the rebounding, you might teach, 4 to the glass, 1 back, but I think there's more that you could teach, right? You could teach swim move, like whatever you want, like your program to be. And for us, I really like pinning. I think it just keeps it simple. When we crash for offensive glass, I think it's easy to like keep people accountable. So I can like watch our guys and they have to crash, but sometimes you get boxed out. So it's like, all right, you're getting boxed out, but you could still try to pin. So I could still like, oh, coach, I couldn't crash. I got boxed out. All right, well, you better pin that guy in because that ball might bounce long.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm four to the glass, 1 back. I really wanted to do that whole tagging up thing this year. We've talked about it once or twice where when the shot goes up, everybody kind of rushes into the paint. And this is kind of where I got the pinning from. And you kind of try to pin them in, but you really want to rush into the middle of the paint. And part of the reason is you're kind of matching up on your guy. You want to create like a 50-50 situation to get the rebound. And if they do get it, then you're matched up. You can press. So that was kind of the thing, but we're not gonna have time to work on that enough. So we're gonna be 4 to the glass, 1 back, and yeah. And then what about defensive rebounding? I mean, are you guys doing drills? Like, how are you gonna tackle that?
So I mean, hopefully one of my favorite drills when we can get to contact is going to be, because that's one thing I have not done yet. Because like you said, with the COVID stuff, we're not allowed to hit contact yet, right? So whenever we are able to, it's going to be one of my favorite drills is that I call it 2 in the hole, where you have 2 rebounders, 2 running in from the wings, and you shoot it up, and they've got to box out, and they have to get 2 rebounds in a row to get out, otherwise they stay in. So that's one I like to do because it's kind of like a grit and toughness one, because I've seen people get stuck in there for 15 minutes, and it's so tiring. Like, it's so tiring. Once you get that first, the second, the third, and then it's like 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's not just physically tiring; it's like mentally taxing. Because you're just like, man, I can't get it, but you got to tough it out. Do you want to get out of there or not? So most of the time that doesn't happen, but every once in a while you get someone just stuck in there, and it's grueling. So you've got to be able to hit someone, box out, keep them out. I would say that's one of the ones I like. I've seen a couple other ones. One that I've used in the past is, I don't even know what I really called it, but basically like you have 4 on offense, 4 on defense, and they're running in like a circle, like they're following each other. And then you say which one's offense, which one's defense, whatever. And then you shoot it up and it's just a scramble, but they all got to react and box out and get the rebound. So it's kind of like semi game like where nobody really knows where they're going to be, where like the 2 in the hole, you're going to be in the same spot every time,
Mm-hmm.
So those are a couple ones I would use.
Yeah. Those are awesome drills, both of those. And that circling up one, that's like one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite drills of all time, just because I like to do it into like a down and back. Like, and so you can work on, in that situation, you can work on everything. You can work on, so the shot goes up, there's the box out that needs to happen. Then you got the rebound, then you can work on the outlet. Now you're in a transition offense. You can work on transition down. Then you can, you might not have anything. So you get into your man offense, you work on that. Then you shoot it. And now it's the other team's turn. They have to rebound. And same thing back, transition back. So cool. All right. And yeah, I agree. I think that for us, I want to maybe go 3 days in a row to start this off, where it's like, okay, shell drill, rebound drill, press break, and that'll probably be it. And those would be like the 3 things for the first day. And and then the second day I want to do the same thing. Boom, boom, boom. And then the third day I want to do maybe the same thing, or I might want to switch it up that day, but I want to like pound home like the stuff we're talking about, right? Like the essentials. I want to make sure that I pound those home, and then I want to move on to the next thing. I want to pound those home, move on to the next thing, because I mean, from the looks of it, nothing's 100% official at this point. I don't know how long this podcast is going to be till it comes out, a few weeks, but we're not going to have a lot of time before our first game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I don't know about you guys, but right now we're not allowed to, like, we can't hit contact still.
yeah, same here. Like, we're not even in season yet, and like,
right.
You know, we're gonna have a few like real practices before the first game, from my
right.
understanding.
Yeah, it's not going to be many, you know, so it's going to be tough. It's
yeah,
be a new challenge.
Yeah, and for some coaches, it won't be as bad because their programs are more dialed in. They're like in their 6th season, 7th season, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
For newer coaches, it's a little more difficult.
I mean, this is my 3rd, and this is your second.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, we were talking before this, you know, all our OBs are fine. Like, there's a lot of things that were fine, you know, the guys know it, but there's some things that are going to be new and different. So those are the things I'm worried about. Okay. And the fact that just the kids have not been playing, you know, as much as they normally have. So like rebounding, are they really going to remember to rebound? Not even technique wise, but you know.
Right.
Okay. What kind of stuff are you going to talk about? Like, are you going to talk about transition offense? We're kind of getting to the brink now where like some of these things, because of time crunch, might get pushed to the wayside, but obviously I think we, in a perfect world, will want to. So how about you?
So yeah, transition offense is something that for me, thankfully I can do without needing to have contact. So I already put in my secondary. So my kids know what I run for my secondary. I basically have 2 main man offenses that I run, and they know the secondaries for both. So we'll cover it, but it'll be more like when we get contact, they'll be able to go live against someone else. But thankfully, yeah, they should know that already.
Cool. So that's not going to be too tough on you. And for us, the same. And then that's luckily one thing that's been consistent in our program for 3 years. So that's a good thing for me. Transition defense. I think that's definitely something that needs to be touched upon. I could see you doing shell drill and working on your half court defense a lot more than you're be talking about transition defense, but I think it needs to be brought up. So how are you going to approach that?
So those are, I think you can do like advantage drills, and those are a really good way for transition defense. So, you know, one of the most standard ones is 5 on the baseline, 5 on, you know, across the free throw line. And then you call out a number, or even just a lot of times it's whoever you throw to on the baseline, the opposite person on the free throw line has to go tag, you know, that baseline. And so you're creating a 5-on-4, and then they've got to rotate and cover and figure out what to do until that player gets back. And, you know, I think the hardest thing for a lot of times for high school kids is to realize you want to stop and you want to flood ball side first, and you want to leave the longest pass open, you know, and that's where you want to let that person recover to. But you can do that with smaller numbers. You know, I might start off with like 3-on-2 or something, or 4-on-3, and then expand it out to 5 players. But, and then you can also do similar stuff where like you shoot up a shot, maybe that rebounding drill. I think that rebounding drill we talked about earlier, the circle drill, that works on your transition D, because that team gets it and they're out running. And now if you're on defense, you've got to hustle back, turn a half court, you know, match up and get ready for the team to come down. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. But I definitely think if you don't cover how to defend in transition, you're going to see a lot of times where players will 2 people covering the one person, no communication, you know, teaching them communication. All those things will make it so that you don't give up easy buckets, because there is nothing more frustrating than giving up rebound, straight line drive, layup like that. That will drive any coach crazy.
Yeah. And that's one reason why we need that one guy back, right? When we're 4 to the glass, 1 back. And I feel like nowadays it's been even more common to send 2 people back. I don't know. I saw like, you know, I watched the analytics, some like analytics starts to say that you need to send 2 people back or something like that. And so they're starting to see that. But I value the offensive rebound. We shoot 3s, so there's an opportunity to offensive rebound. So I'm sending 4.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for transition defense, the drill you mentioned with the guy touching the line, I like all kinds of drills where you have like an advantage +1, because the defender eventually will, or +2 coming back. In a real game, right? The team will eventually have their defender will come back, right, and match up too. So I know there's like drills like 3-on-2, 2-on-1, which are not as realistic, which are good, right? They do teach transition defense. 3-on-2, someone stop the ball, pass to the wing, drop. You take the first pass, that kind of stuff. But it's in a real game, right? It would be 3-on-2 +1 for that third guy to come back. So
the UCLA drill, what we call it UCLA, where you have 3 coming down, 3-on-2, and then you have the runner coming in at half court to make it 3-on-3. That's another one. Transition D in offense.
And that one's my favorite. Yeah, we call that fireman drill, but
that's right.
But or 3-on-2 +1. Yeah, but that's gotta be my favorite one as a player. As a coach, I probably like the one you mentioned with the 5 players across, or the circle up one, just because I want to see 5 players on the floor, and because I'm watching more than just defense. I'm watching, can we flow into our offense, or what is the offense looking like, and then also, with 5 players, you might have like some really stupendous rotation in transition defense, where someone stops the ball, and then it swings to the corner, guy's open, and then someone rotates there. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for,
right,
in transition. And also stopping the ball. I mean, you talked about all the things already. Communication, all that kind of stuff can definitely be taught in those first few weeks. All right. Just a couple more things, and I'll go ahead and just spill the beans on those. So the last things we kind of discussed is like, you might want to talk about special situations, like what to do when, I don't know, just the other team has the ball, you're up by 3. Some coaches like to foul and put them on the line so they don't hit the 3. That might be a special situation you go over. Are there any other specific ones you can think of?
I like having a play for 5 seconds or less, like a full court play for 5 seconds or less. Some teams are really intricate and they do like a 5 seconds or less, 3 seconds or less, like, all this stuff. And I guess if you're probably like NBA level or college level, you have the time for that. High school, sometimes you don't have the time for all that, but at least one for 5 seconds or less, because you're probably going to find yourself in a game at least once every year where it's a 2-point game, and the ball's on your end and you got 4.8 seconds. Okay. And if you don't have something drawn up, while you can call timeout and draw it up really quickly for them, I think sometimes as a coach, first of all, it's hard to think like, okay, I got 20 seconds to think what's the best way to attack this. And secondly, then the players have to follow along. And when you're like on the board, there's always one player that's, off in La La Land, or they're staring at the board and the board like looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, and they have no idea what it is. And you're like, you got it? And they're like, yeah. And then they go out there and do the exact opposite of what you asked them to do. It's the worst. It's so frustrating. So it's so much easier just to be like, hey, here's what we do. When I call this, whatever. Like I usually call it home run. That was my name for it. Home run. Here's the play, because we got to get a home run on this if we want to win the game. And then they know exactly where to go, and boom, we run the play. So I think that's important to have that in.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great special situation. I think another situation that came to my mind is 2-for-1. At the end of halftime or quarter, especially in high school, we play quarters, right? So there's more opportunity for 2-for-1s. That's something you could teach. And then, special situations, like I guess also too, right? If you're talking about like under 5 seconds, full court play, you might want to under 5 seconds from the side, SOB, side out of bounds play, or maybe a special baseline play that you could put in that you only run in, important moments, stuff like that. And speaking of side out of bounds and baseline out of bounds, those are the last things I think that we first I'll just put a disclaimer. Of course, there's more things, right? There's a lot more things that we could talk about. But these are the essentials. So baseline out of bounds and sidelight out of bounds. I guess my question to you, because we just already said we both would put those in. How many are we looking at?
Sideline out of bounds, I don't have a ton. I usually might have like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Baseline out of bounds might be like 5 to 7, because you got your man and your zone. So I'm going to have like 3 or 4 man and then like 1 or 2 zones. So that could be anywhere from 5 to 7 plays. I like having at least 1 or 2 of my, these are my go-tos, and then maybe a couple counters to those go-tos. And then obviously your zone ones just to either get the ball in or some are to score off the zone. So.
Nice. Do you, I know some coaches like this where all their baseline out of bounds for man are the same formation, or do you have different formations for all your plays?
I have different formations. Most of them are probably the same, but a couple of them are a little bit different.
Yeah, I think most coaches start off by saying, all right, all my baseline out of bounds are going to have the same formation and da-da-da. But then like the baseline out of bounds thing is like something that doesn't have to, but it could change every year. I mean, like you could switch up your BOBs pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in the end, it just comes down to like, yeah, I'm the same way. Like mine all have different formations, or I might have two that have the same formation. One's kind of like a counter, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm the same way, a couple zone ones, couple man ones. If all of a sudden I have a shooter one year, I'll put in a one for a shooter. If I have a good big one year, we'll run one for a big. And yeah, we'll just run those 5-on-0, 5-on-5. And I guess if I was going to give any value on that, like one fun thing I guess you could do with baseline out of bounds and sideline out of bounds is have like two teams and huddle a team up and be like, all right, play number 1 is this. Play number 2 is this play. Play number 3 is this play. Or even just 1 and 2, remember your plays. All right. And then you let them run those, because that's the thing that sucks when you run baseline out of bounds. Like your teammates know it.
Yeah, right. And they cheat.
So he's like, all right, we'll practice at 5-on-5, but we never get what we want. And it never looks right. So I think calling it like that is a way to kind of disguise it.
For sure. And I think the other thing too is, as much as we as coaches will be like, well, if they're cheating, just go back door. And that's great. I mean, it does teach kids to react and read stuff, which is good. But at the same time, you're just like, well, we're all trying to actually practice our plays right now. So if you're cheating every time you're just getting backdoored and getting scored on, well, that's cool in a game. Like the other team's not going to know every play we run, So you're still not really working on what you want to work on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's actually a whole episode in itself, man. We might want to remember that. It's like, as a coach, everyone knows your plays and practice and stuff. You're trying to work on them. How do you make it more realistic?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenging thing, I think, for sure.
I agree.
All right. Is there any other things that came to your mind, or any other little things that we left out? Anything you can think of?
No, I mean, I think I just want to add in that, like, people could argue there are other important things. Some people would say like huddling up at the free throw line is a foundation of your, when there's a free throw, huddle up so you can get a play. Like, yeah, I would agree. That's probably a foundational thing for a lot of coaches, but some coaches don't care about that much. And I think every coach may have a slightly different variation of what's foundational to them. But I think you have to have at least all of what we talked about if you want to be competitive, and it doesn't have to be exactly how we did it or how another coach does it. It can be what works for you. But if you don't touch all these topics and you just go in and you're like, hey, I'm going to put offense and defense and that's it, and hope we're going to win games, I think you're going to have a tough time winning like that. And like you said, time management is the toughest part, because there's so much you want to do, but you have limited time. So find the best way to add in as many different things, but you don't want to spread yourself so thin that you don't actually like master any techniques either. Right. And I think that would maybe be my last little piece of advice on that.
Yeah. And I think I agree with that. And I think every coach is going to put weight on different things, right? You might spend majority of your time doing half court man defense stuff. And some other coaches like, we never do defense. We do, although they do it sometimes, but they put more focus on, they spend time shooting and working on their transition offense because they run and gun or something like that. So, but yeah, like you said, these are all things that you must do in order just to be prepared for a real game where you don't know if you're going to see a 3-2 or a 2, or a press or whatever, man defense, zone defense. So, and we didn't even talk about zone offense, actually, honestly. I think I just realized that, but of course we're going to be putting in our zone offenses as well. And do you normally have a different zone offense for different zone defense?
Yes, difference for 2-3 and 3-2, because depending on how they're set up, you're going to overload the court a little bit differently. So yeah, absolutely. And that's a good catch. We did not talk about zone offense.
All good. We've talked about that in another episode. So go ahead and check out our videos on YouTube. You can look right through there and just search zone offense and you'll find some stuff on our YouTube channel. That's all we got for this week, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you like today's episode and you are watching on YouTube, like I said, go check out some of our other videos, subscribe there. If you're following us on iTunes or Spotify, or should I say listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, subscribe there as well. We come out with a new episode once a week, and we hope to see you guys in the next one.
Peace.